18th, 2022, Finance Committee meeting of the Boyertown Area School Board. I'd like to call to order and have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Hogan.
Present.
Ms. Nyman.
Here.
Mr. Panarello.
Here.
Mr. Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Zawada.
Here.
Mrs. Scott.
Here.
Ms. Deeroff.
Here.
Mr. Hemingway.
Here.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
All present.
Now if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. First item is President Report. There were some abstentions from voting at the last meeting that we did not publicly announce, so I'd like at this time to ask those that did those abstentions to give their reasons. Can we start with Mr. Updegrove?
My reason, the vacancy was created by me as a resignation.
Okay. Mrs. Nyman?
I abstained from the nominations for the Region 1 because I was not in agreement for either candidate.
Mrs. Scott?
I abstained because I had just been put on the board and I wasn't familiar with the subject matter.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to public comment. We have one person signed up. I do not know if there's any other people signed up in the back. Okay. Okay, we have 6 people signed up, so I will read the guidelines below. On behalf of the school board directors, I would like to welcome you to this meeting. We welcome your attendance and input from stakeholders to assist us in making recommendations and decisions related to the Boyertown Area School District. The procedures and rules for public participation are detailed in PSCDP Board Policy 006, located on the BSASD website. Participants properly registered on a sign-up sheet will be recognized by the presiding officer. Public comment number 1 is limited to topics on tonight's agenda. Participants must preface their comments by announcing their name, address, and group affiliation if that is appropriate. All statements, inquiries, or comments shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually, administrative team members individually, school employees, or members of the public individually. Note that we value and will not compromise the privacy of our students and staff. Please see us outside the realm of the public meeting if you're concerned about an individual or staff member or student. If your public comment includes a question, Mrs. Storscher or a member of her staff will be in contact with you to confirm your question and provide you with the information. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and comment periods are limited to 30 minutes. Individuals may indicate a desire to speak for a second time if there is left time in the 30-minute period. Finally, we do record our board and committee meetings and post them on YouTube with a link to our website. We request if you do wish to take pictures or record the meeting yourself, you do so in a non-disruptive manner and discreet manner and use those materials respectfully and responsibly. Okay. Okay, we'll start with Cassandra Roney.
Hi there, good evening. Cassandra Roney, Manatawny Drive in Douglas Township. As you're aware, I'm sure, if you're looking at anything in the news, many neighboring districts have gone mask optional, like Perkiomenville, Solderton, Ole Valley, Hamburg, Kutztown, and a few others. Kids wear the same mask for weeks unwashed. It's touched all day with unwashed hands. It's causing headaches, dry mouth, sores, dental issues, fatigue, emotional damage, distraction, skin rashes, strep throat, and overall unhappiness. Why would anyone wish this upon their child? Why would so many be willing to sacrifice the very people who we are put on this earth to protect? Those of you should be ashamed. When will you draw the line to protect your own children from the madness that stems from all of this? When you have to shave their head and put a number on the back of their neck, perhaps? Maybe let's make all of them wear glasses, just so everyone can see. It's out of control and never ending. This entire process is turning our children against each other for no good reason. The ESSER guidelines to receive funding say each LEA must create a health and safety plan that addresses how it will maintain the health and safety of students, educators, and other staff, which will serve as local guidelines for all instructional and non-instructional school activities during the period of LEA's ARP ESSER grant. The health and safety plan should be tailored to the unique needs of each LEA, and its schools must take into account public comment related to the development and subsequent revisions to the health and safety plan. Very early proceeding to use the words recommendations. It's not laws. Other districts have worked around these guidelines to free their children from the wrath of the government dollar on behalf of their respective communities. When will the children you swore to protect matter more than the amount of funding? Just some quotes from Martin Luther King. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor
30
popular,
seconds.
but he must take it because his conscience tells him it is right. I'm just going to remind you guys, you're here because the community voted for you. That's who you're upholding, and it's the PA Constitution that all of you need to reread. Thank you for your time.
Next would be Stacy Stafford.
Stacy Stauffer, Villa Avenue, Boyertown. I just wanted to touch base with a couple things about masks. We've all seen the news, and cloth masks are just totally inefficient. And N95s are, they say, better, but again, they cannot be touched. They're contaminated. If the kids are touching them through the day without completely sanitized hands, everyone at the school is wearing pretty much fecal matter on there. And I don't want to be graphic about it, but that's what you're wearing on your face. You're touching that, and the kids are touching their masks. So an N95, a cloth mask, cannot be touched, and once it gets moist, it has to be removed and replaced. So you're talking almost about every hour that a child is in school, they would have to replace the mask, and they're not doing that. So it's not effective. And I just want to touch base on the mental health struggles of these kids. My friend's son goes to Daniel Boone, and at the beginning of the school year, he was struggling. They went mask optional, and I reached out to her about a month after they let go of the mask and said, how's he doing in school now? He's doing much better. Mentally, he's enjoying school. So you can see the difference of 10 minutes away down the street. Kids are finally free, enjoying school. Mental health is better in a district that's 10 minutes away, and we can't do the same for our kids in this district. And it's so sad to me. And that teen suicide, the girls, it's up 50%. 50% of girls are trying to take their own lives, and what are we doing? We all want to protect our children. We all do. I mean, just on Facebook, there's cars, we have to be aware of kids walking to school and people luring our children. We have, the safety drills that our children have to come to school, bomb threats and things, guns. And if we think about what our children could go through every day, we would never let them out of the house. We would lock our children in the basement and never let them. That's not living life, though. That's not freedom. Maybe I have a different perspective because we adopted our son older in life and from China. And I was there in a communist country, and I saw what people go through when they lose their freedoms. And I was never so happy after 3 weeks of being in China, seeing life there, and people don't have a say in their government, in their schools, or anything, coming back to America and being so grateful. And that was 5 years ago, and now I see things slipping away here from parents, from what we want to do with our children, their freedoms, to breathe, to have a normal school experience. And that is so sad to me, that we are becoming like the country, like we took him from there to give him these things, and it's taken away.
30 seconds.
I just think, I don't even know what else to say. I mean, it's not living life, and we're supposed to be the adults protecting our children, giving them their freedoms, but we're taking away things from them. They're the least affected group from COVID, but we're taking everything from them. And this is what we're leaving them with. And how in 10 years are they going to look back and view us as parents, as the school boards, seeing what we did to them? Thank you.
Alex Bruckner.
My name is Alex Bruckner, and I have 2 children that attend Washington Elementary, and I have another one in kindergarten next year. I'm a police officer and a combat veteran. I understand how to deal with conflict, and I know how important it is for people to be heard. So why are we throwing parents out of school board meetings? More importantly, why do parents feel the need to interrupt the meetings? When you argue with your spouse, have you ever noticed why you're yelling instead of talking? Because you feel like you're not being heard, right? So you got to say it louder. It's been almost 2 years, and you're still not hearing us. Hearing doesn't mean giving us 3 minutes to speak and then ignoring everything we just said. Hearing is active listening and reflecting on the things that were said and repeating them back so we can have a discussion. We haven't had a single open forum, back and forth discussion about masks since the start. It's just sit down, shut up, put your mask on, or leave. But we can change that tonight. If I was superintendent for a day, I would scrap the entire plan and make it a one-page school policy. The policy would ensure each classroom is well stocked with hand sanitizer. It would encourage frequent hand washing and less nose picking. It would allow for all students, faculty, to wear masks if they want to wear a mask. If you're symptomatic, stay home. If you're feeling better, come on back to school. You know, the way we used to live our lives. No 10-day quarantines or contact tracing. This can be done. It's just a choice. It's not a death sentence. Let's not consider ourselves pioneers in this venture. Other schools have already paved the way, and we're the late ones to the party. And those schools are in no worse shape than we are. Because I know all this sounds crazy by today's standards, how about something a little more realistic? If you're going to keep the health and safety plan as is, I propose an amendment that would allow for an effortless mask exemption signed by the parents. And if we're the crazy minority that people make us out to be, then it won't affect many people anyway. Let's face it, most parents are presumably indifferent about their children wearing masks. If their children aren't complaining about the mask, then they probably won't fill out the exemption form. And that's okay, that's their choice, but we should be given that choice. That was the whole meaning behind the movie The Matrix. Humans will always be at their happiest when given the ability to choose, all humans, liberal or conservative. No matter what we do, we cannot control COVID, but we sure are letting it control us, aren't we? To the parents in this district who may disagree with me, that knot you have in your stomach thinking of your masked daughter walking side by side in the hallways with my maskless daughter, I understand this makes you uncomfortable, but that is the feeling right there. That is the cost of freedom. It's a small price compared to what some of my brothers have paid. So you better do a darn good job of justifying why you're not paying it, other than an 8-page anecdotal safety plan. We agree COVID is frighteningly mysterious and we don't know its long-term effects, but we also don't know the long-term effects of coerced vaccines or mandatory quarantines and masks, none of which are slowing COVID down anyway. But I still love you. You are my friends, you are my neighbors, and you are my community, and I'll always be here for you. Make no mistake, however, I will always promote freedom over fear. I did it once as a soldier, and I do it now as a cop. God willing, I do my best to protect other people's freedoms so that they aren't a slave to fear, and I ask that you do the same for me and my family. To the board, I'm not asking you to guarantee my children's safety, because who can? I'm asking you to guarantee the right to choose to breathe free. Thank you.
Next, John Dobbs.
Good evening. My name is John Dobbs. I live in Gilbertsville, PA. First, I just want to second everything he said. Alex, couldn't have been said any better. Thank you for your service. And with that, I stand before you as a parent who's telling you, you need us. You need our children. We do not need you. As a person who could have lived anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania and chose to come to this school because of your outstanding academics, how sadly we are disappointed. This has become a feckless cesspool, bureaucratic cesspool. Disgusting, nothing gets done, and like Alex said, this has become a quick, let's run the 3-minute clock out and not listen to anybody. This is not a conversation. This is just, let's follow the rules. Well, the rules are, we have freedom in this country. Freedom of choice. Our kids do not want to wear masks. I don't want my child wearing a mask. Step up and do your job. You were voted in to change that, now do it. With that being said, concernedparentsofamerica.com, we're putting our money where our mouth is. Our wife and I have funded the Complete LLC. 100% of the proceeds go to lawyers to fight against you guys, like at your last meeting where you have a lawyer on the screen. Even if we leave the district, everything goes to the proceeds. concernedparentsofamerica.com. Everybody up here has an attorney working for them. The kids are going to have attorneys working for them. You're going to follow the laws. You're going to stop disobeying the Sunshine Act and numerous other everything else we know you were doing. With that being said, I highly recommend we're going to pull our 4 kids and go to Christian Coventry School, a school that stood up to the state and won, even under harassment of getting all sorts of threats to them from the state for standing up to them. Guess what? They stayed open, they won, it's mask optional, and the kids are, it's unbelievable how the kids are excelling. My 4 kids went there today. They couldn't believe how normal it was, how efficient the kids are, and how on such a higher level because they're not worried about focusing on is your mask below your face. Now, I might get heated, but I'm an educated person. The reason I get heated is because I feel like there's no conversation going on. It's 3 minutes of dialogue, and then that's it. You sit down and nothing happens. Then we all go back home, everybody talks among themselves, and nothing happens. Even though we are pulling our 4 kids from this district, and we are fortunate enough to be able to put them in private school, there's many parents that can't. ConcernedParentsOfAmerica.com, we will continue to make sure that this school does the right thing. We're looking for support, making sure masks is optional, you're not forcing medicine on our kids, and that you are following the laws that you are supposed to be enforcing, but you don't even know what they are, except the 3-minute clock. And here it comes. Wait for it, guys. In the middle of talking, while the veteran's speaking, go ahead. When he was speaking before, go ahead, say it.
30 seconds, sir.
There you go. It sounds like you're very interested in what I have to say. So that being said, our 4 kids are going to Christian Coventry School. Amazing place, blew our socks away. If you guys can afford it or if there's parents out there, highly recommend private school. Your kids are being failed by this feckless, bureaucratic cesspool. And again, if you'd like to stand up to them, please donate to concernedparentsofamerica.com. Again, we're here for the community, and we want to support everybody, but this is a joke, what
Time.
you guys are doing. Thank you.
Joe Piccioni.
Thank you. I have some notes, but I think I'm going to skip around a little bit after hearing what some other folks have said. I want to bring some reality to all of this. No one likes masks. No one wants our children to wear masks in school. But everyone's job is not to do whatever the hell we want. It is to do what we need to do to keep our children and our community safe. I myself am an online educator, and I know that virtual education is not for everyone, and it is hard for a number of students and families, but that is where we will be within days or weeks if we go to mask optional. As of this morning, there were 91 comments on feedback on the health and safety plan. 62 of them explicitly supported continuing to mandate masks, And most of them want it to go further by making masks mandatory until we get to low transmission. This clearly indicates the majority of stakeholders in this district do not support a mask optional plan. In the end, though, I'm not asking you to listen to me or to parents who agree with me or parents who don't agree with me. I'm asking you to listen to doctors and scientists and experts. If this meeting were about crafting a U.S. history curriculum, I would tout myself as somebody you should listen to because I have the credentials to talk about that. I don't, so I want you to listen to those that do. This should not be influenced by empty threats and political nonsense and made up whatever. If parents are going to pull their children out of BSD because of masks, they probably did it a long time ago. We've had masks for over a year and a half. The only time it wasn't mandated, it was for about a week, and it was a disaster. No one wants masks. Everyone wants as much in-person learning as possible, but we can't have one without the other. So I ask that you choose science over mistruth and choose our children's health, safety, and education over politics. Thank you.
Corrine Bertino.
So, we have talked about masks because of COVID, but what about the acknowledgement from the district about the fact that masks impede learning? It recognized the negative impact masks have on the kids' ability to learn. Ask your teachers, and I will disagree with the disaster comment. The first week of school for grades 7 through 12 who were not masked, there was a lot more participation. Ask them, they'll tell you. And if the teachers won't tell you, ask the students. They will tell you how happy it was and what a different experience it was. Think of the young student who needs visual cues to learn how to read. Think of a young teenage girl who gets bad acne from the mask and the damage it does to her self-esteem or mental well-being. Think of the new kids to the district who have a hard time meeting other students. Think of kids experiencing more symptoms and medical issues because their medical exemption was denied. So when people say, what's the big deal? The big deal is the impact on these kids. The big deal is life. Adults know the value of seeing friends and having in-person experiences face-to-face. Our kids need to go live life, especially when statistically the virus is zero risk to them. Secondly, many talk about data and experts. The former FDA commissioner says, quote, cloth masks aren't going to provide a lot of protection. That's the bottom line. This is an airborne illness. We now understand that a cloth mask is not going to protect you from a virus that spreads through airborne transmission, end quote. We had the experiment and the masks have not prevented like we believed. And you can say it would have been worse. But there's plenty of data across the entire country that this is not the case. It has changed. We know about transmission and severity of the disease has changed. We must acknowledge the change. We are asking for optional. We are asking for a parent to make the choice for their kid and it be respected. And lastly, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, it says, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." So tonight, I pray for all of you. I pray on behalf of all the students who are suffering. And I pray in Jesus' name that you are given wisdom and discernment to see the right decision.
30 seconds.
May God bless.
That's the end of the public comment period. Moving on to the presentation discussion of the 22-23 budget timeline and outlook presentation. Ms. Denicola.
Tonight, I'll be providing an update on the 2022-23 budget timeline and what the outlook looks like for our district and those across the state. Tonight, I'll review the 2022-23 budget and most importantly, the Act 1 index. I know we have a lot of new board members, so I want to explain what the Act 1 index is and what that means for school districts. I'm going to discuss the economic indicators that our community and our district is facing. I'm going to give the timeline for the 2022-23 budget and then provide some closing comments. So Act 1, you'll hear a lot of talk about Act 1 when it talks about school budgets. Act 1 was established in June 2006 and modified in 2011. What Act 1 does is it limits a school district's ability to increase taxes without a voter referendum or other exception. A district can raise taxes no more than their published adjusted index, and to raise taxes above the index, voters would need to either approve that or the district would need to be eligible for exceptions. Act 1 does allow a district to pass a resolution each budget year agreeing not to raise taxes above the district's adjusted index. In the 2021-22 budget year cycle, 427 out of the 500 Pennsylvania school districts adopted this Act 1 resolution. So for our community, the Boyertown's adjusted index for 2022-23 is 4.2%. What that means is the district, without exception, cannot raise taxes above the 4.2%. You also see our adjusted index history. Last year it was 3.7%. In 2020-21 it was 3.2%. The key economic indicators that are impacting, the cost of goods that we as individuals purchase in a store versus what the district pays, it's impacting everyone. When we look at the consumer price index for the 12 months ended November 21, the consumer price index is an increase of upwards of 7%. That includes the cost for all items within the consumer price index, including food and energy. Taking food and energy out of that calculation, the cost index, consumer price index is upwards of 5%. So not only is the district facing higher cost, we know that our community is facing higher cost, and that's both of those factors are going to be factored into our budget development. To give an adjustment for the regionally adjusted consumer price index, when we look at the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic region, which is our region in particular, in a region size of 2.5 million or less, the 12 months ended December 2021, the consumer price index raised 7%. So again, nationally we're seeing an impact, and locally in our own Mid-Atlantic region we're seeing that same impact. The key cost drivers of the district continue to be personnel, salaries, and benefits. The salaries and benefits include roughly 476 professional staff or teachers, roughly 200 support staff individuals, and 29 administrative staff members. That makes up the largest portion of our budget. We have continued challenges regarding our charter school costs. A regular education student enrolled in a charter school costs the district roughly $12,500 a year, whereas a special education student costs the district upwards of $30,000 a year. We continue to face these mandated services costs for charter school costs and related, with no state assistance regarding those mandated expenditures. Another key cost driver of the district is our facility operations. We need to maintain our buildings. We need to plan for the future regarding the large maintenance costs that might be needed, such as roofing and related facilities costs. Those are all key cost drivers of the district that we must manage each year. Knowing the constraints we may have, we do have some very positive 2022-23 budgetary goals. Our goal is to maintain educational offerings. We don't want to cut any of the programs that we have. We feel that we can offer the best cyber education program to the Boyertown area community students with our own teachers. So we'd like to increase the enrollment with our own cyber program for those families that feel that cyber education is the best for them. As discussed at our last meeting, we'd like to explore options for better serving the needs of our students. Namely, can we serve the needs of some of our special education students in a better manner than having them placed outside of the district? We will continue to work on planning for our facilities, ensuring that our facilities throughout the years continue to meet the needs of our students. We are also going to be looking to spend within the means that our community can support. We are going to need to manage the cost increases that the district is facing for supplies and goods against what the community can afford. For the budget timeline, by January 27th, 2022, The district would need to state a resolution that they will not raise taxes above the index. This will be my recommendation and follow what most school districts throughout the state do. They pass the Act 1 resolution stating that they will pass a budget that includes a tax increase no higher than their adjusted index. By May 31st, we would need to adopt our proposed final budget, and then by June 30th, adopt our final budget. All throughout the budget process, you can see the budget numbers, they will change. We can change them up to and including June 30th before we pass the final budget. So on the January 25th agenda, you will see that we will be recommending adoption of the Act 1 resolution that states that for the 2022-23 budget year, the district will not raise taxes above the index of 4.2%. And that's it for the presentation.
We go for board discussion at this point.
You got our charter costs at $12,000 per student. What is Boyertown's cost per student? I thought you told me that, told us a while ago.
That would be the certified tuition rate that the charter school student, that the state certifies as our rate.
That's our rate.
It's based upon our expenditures.
Okay.
Ms. Nyman?
We're still going to try to get in with like the Berks IU and that gets us cost savings through different things.
Correct. We will look to utilize the IU for those programs that will generate cost savings for the district. They offer many opportunities to go out to bid with them and certain things like that. For large expenditures such as fuel and such, we participate in those consortiums.
What do we participate in?
I don't have the list in front of me now, but I can get that information for you.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to some of the newer people to know what we do put out for a larger bid type thing with the IU.
Ms. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Ruffey. Have we been told yet if we qualify for exemptions?
In a rough calculation, the amount of exceptions that we would be eligible for would be very limited.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other board questions? Okay, we'll close the, oh, sorry.
I apologize. It came in late. So I saw that the rate that we can go to without exemptions is 4.2, which looks like it's historically pretty high, right? Like if you look at the last, I don't know,
The last number of years, and it's tracked right along with the state index.
Right. So it does look like it's higher than it's been for, oh yeah, for a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Ms. Scott?
Do we have to follow that index? Can we make it a little bit lower?
We can make it lower. With the Act 1 resolution would say is that we can't go higher than that index.
Okay, okay. Do you know offhand, or can I get information on our, not that I want to know what each individual family makes, but do we have a lot of lower and middle-class families in our district that might really severely affect?
I can update that information for you.
Okay.
Yeah, just in an answer to you, last year the index was 3.8 and we went at 3.0. So Ms. Denicole and Ms. Dorsch have done a lot of work to bring the taxes down to what we have to and not to the index. So that's part of our goal that's actually part of the goal that both of those have stated many times that they try to do. We go with what we need.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Nyman.
Where are we in reference to our current year? Are we in line, or are we a little high or a little bit low?
We will be sharing budget updates at the next board meeting, including treasurer's reports. I will tell you that our real estate tax collections tracked right on par with where we've been in prior years, so we were greatly encouraged by the community support, and we hope to continue that, working with the community in our tax increase.
Ms. Hogan?
Just one more quick question. I apologize. Do you know and this might not even be a question for you, but do you know how many of our schools qualify for Title I funds?
I don't know that offhand. Mary Beth?
I don't
Get
have
that
the
for you.
number of schools. I know that Dr. O'Barrow could give us that information, and we can get that.
Okay, I appreciate
For
it.
you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll close this portion and move on to the 21-22 Health and Safety Plan revision presentation.
There's no new presentation this evening. I just did want to review, as one of the public comments did capture, that the majority of the vote, or not votes, but the comments that came in were to keep masks in place, and they were very concerned about the recommendation from the administration to move from masking to mask optional once we move from high or start to move towards substantial. So that at this time, the plan that was presented to the board last week is the same presentation and is the same plan that we have this evening.
Anonymous comments online.
I'm going to open this up for board discussion at this time. Members of the board want to discuss or questions on this? Mr. Updegrove?
As a bus driver, I see all the masks on the bus. There's no reason that we couldn't go optional, because if there's a COVID on my bus, everybody would have it. It's not something that kids cannot keep in control. Senior high, look, pull my videos on my bus and see what goes on sometime, and then sit there and tell me that the masks are actually keeping the virus down. It's not possible.
Ms. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. So I have a few questions. Is there any data that suggests that masks impede learning?
I'm sure that there is some data. There's nothing that's, been brought to my attention.
Mm-hmm. Right, but I mean, we haven't seen, like, within our district, have we seen a large drop in testing scores or any of those things since kids have been in person? I know that it was a struggle virtually. I am speaking, and I would appreciate if the public would not comment while I speak. Thank you. I apologize.
There's been nothing brought to my attention, Mrs. Hogan, with regards to that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I just wanted to bring this up as well. I want to say it was the October meeting, but it may have been the September meeting, so I apologize if I don't have the correct meeting, but I know that our student reps talked about the poll that they did in the high school and how students were comfortable with this health and safety plan, that they felt safe, and that they appreciated it. So I just want to say thank you to the administration for all the hard work that you guys have put in. I know it's really been a lot of work, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Nyman?
Okay, if I'm correct, this plan does not say optional.
You are correct. It does not start out as being optional. It says that while we're in high, we would be recommending wearing masks, until which time we move from high transmission to substantial.
You're in high with the mask.
I cannot support this safety plan. It needs to go to optional now, because that's what we have told these people for so long. Either way, regardless of what side you take, somebody's going to have an issue. I don't think we're following the guidelines for everybody the same. So I have an issue with the contact tracing. I have other schools and know other people on boards, and they say there's nothing like we're doing. I personally, I have asthma, and I'll admit it to everybody, I have asthma. Wearing this thing is only impeding my health. My health has deteriorated in the last year and a half from all of this. So I understand what the children are going through. I really do, and they need to go. We need to leave the parents and the doctors of these children decide what's best for them. That's not our choice. I can't tell anybody here what's best for you because I don't know you personally. I can't say you need to wear one, you don't. I can't say what goes on in your life. It's not my, I can only tell you what's best for me. These parents can only tell you what's best for their children with the consulting of their doctors. For me personally, I know what it's doing to my health. And I'm at a crossroads of my career where I'm about ready to say enough is enough. And if I have to keep wearing the mask, I'm going to retire because I know what it's doing. So I understand perfectly well. Everybody says, oh, you're here for all the students. Yeah, I'm here for all the students. But it's not my choice to tell you what's best for your children. You know what's best for your children, not me. I know what's best for me. My son and daughter-in-law, it's their choice. We don't always agree on masks, but that's their choice. That's their family. Mental health. I'm telling you, the mental health of these students is horrific. I don't know how much it's affecting Boyertown, but I do know it's affecting the children very badly. People are trying to kill themselves. People are taking drugs. Is it worth it? Is this thing worth it? Some people say yes. Well, if that's your belief, fine. By all means, wear it. If your belief is it doesn't help you, then don't wear it. That's your option. That's my option. I don't go into your homes. You don't come into mine. I think this health and safety needs to be amended to say optional, and we need to do something about the contact tracing because that's not cutting it either. Some people get caught in it, others don't, or others are allowed not to be caught in it. We can't have different rules and then allow principals of the schools to change things. I'm just not in favor of that. So to me, it needs to be optional. It needs to be optional right now because your choice is your choice.
Ms. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Brophy. So as far as contact tracing goes, that is laid out in our plan, in our current plan that is on file with the DOH. And staff is not allowed to just arbitrarily amend that, correct? Like they can't just say, oh, you don't have to follow this rule. The rules are the rules for every child based on the plan. Yes, okay, I appreciate that clarification. And then as far as mental health goes, I think it has been brought up that we are in a mental health crisis. There is no doubt about that. That is an absolute truth. There is data that supports that, absolutely. But it's pretty clear from listening to mental health professionals that what children and students and people in general need is more support. It isn't to take a mask off. A mask does not cause a mental health crisis. There are contributing factors that cause that. So to blame masks for a mental health crisis is improper, is the word I'm going to use. And it does not serve the people who are actually suffering. And that's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.
First, I'm sorry.
Mr.
First, I'd
Dwell?
like to say, Lisa, mental health is not just you have anxiety, you have peer pressure. These type of things are brought home. These things are pressed sometimes by the teachers. They're pressed by their friends. You're not wearing it right. They're making you feel about 2 inches tall. Some parents are upset that their kids are taking their masks down. They think they're going to die. It's not going to happen. So mental health is not just this and pressure. It has a lot to do with a lot of things between our eyes. I'd like to give back to Ms. Torsi. I want to thank you and the administration for the job that you've done. Sure, it's been, you couldn't pay me enough to have your position. We've been on this plan. We've been trying for 2 years. I think what we need to do is basically relook at this. And I know for a fact, I've been in sales all my life, okay? Communication is done more than just talking through, whether we talk with our hands, but our hand gestures, the face value that kids can have when they see each other, when the teachers speak, is very important. I think with the new, if we review and change the plan, I think we ought to bring down to look at the per 100,000 number that we've been using and go to possibly just our area, just Boyertown School District. Because we're thrown in with a group right now of Reading, we're in more of a rural area. So I think our group, basically, our school students, that number is less than, I've heard the last couple of days, 1,300 per 100,000. And I guess we got to be down to 150, and that's just considered high. So I would suggest possibly looking into that. Again, the previous board, I'll give you all the credit. The pressure that's been out there is unbelievable, but I think it is time to try something different. Thank you.
Ms. Nyman?
Mrs. Torsia, can we get the data for Berks County by zip codes?
I can look and see if that link is still live.
That, to me, would be more accurate for the Boyertown School District, or zip codes that are relevant to the district. And I would like to see what those numbers would be, maybe.
Ms. Scott?
So in response to the data, the last time I looked at the state map, because I was looking to see what schools were doing around us, and they're mostly, many of them are optional on their masking. And they've given that right back to the parents and to the student, according to what the Pennsylvania court decided, that Wolf wanted to keep a school mandate, and the court said, no, it's unconstitutional to do that. So who are we to step on the Constitution of Pennsylvania or of the United States? If it's unconstitutional, give the right to the parents. They make the decisions. Total agreement with the other board members that have said that here. But I looked and I saw the entire state's in high, and all these other school districts are optional because they followed what the Supreme Court said. I'm not for the tracing at all. I feel like it must take a lot of administrative hours to do that, and I think our teachers and administrators need to be educating our kids, not contact tracing. I feel if a student is sick, parents have to be responsible to keep them home. They know when their children are sick, but to have a child that comes down with COVID, and again, in agreement with all the information that's out there, kids don't get it like we get it. I've had it. they don't get it like that. They might have a sniffle, some kids. Occasionally, there might be one that's a little more sick, but they don't, it just doesn't, with children, it just doesn't pass around like it does with adults. We're just more susceptible to it for whatever reason. The masks, again, do not work. We know that even my husband's an emergency trauma nurse. If he knows he has a COVID patient, he puts on 2 masks, and he knows it's still not going to really work, but at least he puts on 2 masks, he double gloves, and he tells the people, please don't talk. That's what he does while he's in there. Frontline worker, always, there's almost always 1 COVID or 2 COVID patients in the emergency room whenever he's there. Very busy hospitals, working short-staffed, and all this other stuff going on. So frontline people are the ones that really have to watch. In this school, these kids are not frontline workers. They're not coming across really sick people. To treat them as such, to have them come into a school, younger children coming to a school, having to put on a mask, that's only going to produce fear in them. When they're outside of the school, they don't, unless the parent insists, they don't have masks on. So what are you telling them mentally when they come into the school and the first thing they do is have to mask up, social distance, don't talk? It creates a fear in a child, a misunderstanding. They don't know what's going on. It just, to me, just seems so abnormal. So I'm definitely for no contact tracing. Kids are sick, keep them home, and optional masks. Give the parents the freedom to do what they want to do with their children. They certainly know their children better than we do. And there is data out there that kids are being psychologically affected. There is data out there. I don't think we're going to see it yet either. A lot of times these things take a while to really appear within a child. It might not show up until they're in 5th grade and then they're withdrawn and you don't know why. But they haven't, and they just haven't been forced to come out. So a lot of kids are just turning in. And the other thing, I think with the teachers, a younger child, this is what one teacher had said to me, not from this district, had said, when you're masked, I have kids saying to me, what did you say? Or are you upset with me? Because they can't read. You don't have that visual back and forth either. So there has to be a lot of misunderstandings going on in the classroom that teachers aren't even aware of because the kids aren't going to tell them. They're going to remain quiet. So, I'm disappointed that at this stage of the game of COVID, we cannot control a virus, but we can create a healthy, happy environment for these kids if we just give the freedom back to them where it belongs, and we don't do the contract, and we keep the school open. We don't close it when 4 people are out of a classroom and things like that. You keep the school running. No other business shuts down when they're short-staffed. No other business shuts down when a few people are sick. They got to keep it going, and we should too. Thank you.
Mrs. Torsia, how many staff do we have in the schools?
Between the teachers and our support group and other workers, approximately 1,000. 500, a little under 500 are teachers.
But total's 1,000 in the building?
Just about.
So as we talk about children, which you are, we are conveniently not discussing the 1,000 adults that are in that building. So we need to also consider them and their thoughts and their feelings. I just want to bring that up. That's also something to look at. So not trying to, I don't want to go to a point counterpoint. I just want to bring that up, that there's more to this than just the children. Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Rovi. I just wanted to clarify something with Mr. Sultanic. The state Supreme Court did not say that masking is unconstitutional. It said the mask mandate enacted by Governor Wolf was unconstitutional, and then basically gave the authority back to the school districts to decide on masking.
Did you hear that, Mr. Sultanic?
He's, sorry, you're talking, but we can't hear you.
We can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can now.
Okay.
The state Supreme Court, in its written opinion, did not explicitly state that masking is unconstitutional. What the Supreme Court did do is they invalidated the procedures utilized by then acting Secretary of Health Beam in terms of she went about approving the state masking mandate. And in fact, they specified the methodology that she could have used to adopt it legally and accurately. But I think what was done was a short circuit of the process that would have normally taken much longer to approve a mask mandate involving the state legislature, which she bypassed. And as the result, the mask mandate was found to be illegal and because of not following appropriate state procedures. However, the court did not, and actually in dicta said they were not ruling on the underlying issue as to whether masks were constitutional or not. They explicitly stated that it was only with respect to the procedures involved. And technically, there isn't a court decision in Pennsylvania that has directly ruled on the constitutionality of a mask mandate, or for that matter, the authority of a school district under the school code to implement its own masking restrictions.
Thank you, Mr. Sultanic. And I also wanted to, I also wanted to just highlight the fact that in Allegheny County, there was just an injunction put against their district to keep masking in place due to a suit brought by immunocompromised children or parents of immunocompromised children. And I believe the children themselves are named in the suit. I don't know exactly how that works when you sue on behalf of a minor, but, and while we have heard many threats of being sued by parents who want the masks gone, we have yet to see any injunctions put in place that say masks cause harm. But we did see one for those children, and that district now has to mask until a final decision is made in court. And also, I wanted to just bring up that hospitalizations among children are rising, and we also have children who attend our schools, and then they go home to children who are not yet eligible to be vaccinated, where they can also spread COVID to those that vulnerable population as well. So it's not only, it is, you know, it's absolutely the adults and the staff working in our buildings, it's immunocompromised children, it's immunocompromised parents and grandparents that the children go home to in the community, and it's also those younger kids who are still unvaccinated and vulnerable.
Mr. Zawala.
Mr. Sultanic, can I say basically what you just stated was they circumvented basically the legislature? Is that what they kind of ruled? So the legislation would have passed a law, not a mandate. Am I correct in saying that?
They could have passed a law or authorized a regulation for the Secretary of Health to implement a mask mandate, but that did not occur under the circumstances. So that's what the court ruled upon, which I don't believe goes to the underlying issue, what you are addressing this evening.
Okay, thank you. One other thing, as far as masks and vaccinations, okay, it's been proven now. I have a family member right now sitting in bed, has all three the 2 shots, boosters. He's in great health, wears a mask all the time, wears it at work, and he's got COVID. Now, thank God his it's like the flu, but he still got it. You know, we've been told since day one, we wear our masks and we get a shot, we're not going to get sick. Now we were told, don't wear a mask and get the second shot, you won't get sick. Now they're finally realizing that it's not, and now it's just going to make you feel a little better. So these children, you can bring it home just as easy as anything else. It's not, I feel our support staff is very important. Our teachers are very important. But in my heart, I believe that teachers want to teach also. And they know they're a lot better than virtual, but they're not teaching to their potential. And I'd be very surprised. I'm sure we're going to have some feedback and some negativity, but I think ultimately the teacher will want to feel better teaching their students.
Mr. Updegrove.
As far as the Allegheny thing went with the federal judge, when does a federal judge know how to run a school district? That he could apply that?
Oh, I think he's.
No response on that.
I think he's.
Are you addressing that to Mr. Sultanic?
I couldn't hear the comment. I'm sorry.
I'll repeat it. When does a federal judge know anything about running a school district?
Probably never, but they're empowered. They're empowered to make a decision, and that's true with not just issues like this, but with many other issues. But they're granted the power to make those kinds of decisions under state and federal law. And I just want to make clear what the federal decision was, and I use the term loosely in the North Allegheny School District case. All the judge did was rule on a temporary restraining order. No legal opinion was issued as of yet. The underlying merits of the case were not addressed. She did indicate that because of the initial case made by the parents of the fragile students that were the subject matter of that lawsuit, did make a case that their health could be imperiled if the decision was changed, that she would be issuing a temporary restraining order, but the underlying facts of the case are still out there. And though it does perhaps point to a direction where some federal courts may venture, there really is no definitive decision that's associated with that action.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Just one more question for Mr. Sultanic. Is there, have there been any other cases that have come before the courts that are similar to this? I know that I believe these parents are using the ADA. Are there any other similar cases that have already been ruled upon?
Now, we've been tracking these cases nationally. There really have not been all that many cases in Pennsylvania. The last I counted, there were about 7 cases involving injunctions, primarily directed against school districts enforcing masking mandates. No court has yet ruled that a district under Section 510 of the school code does not have authority to issue their own mask mandate in Pennsylvania, and no court has ruled otherwise. In other states, there have been a few sporadic cases involving special needs students and actions. Some of them are due to statewide regulations and actions. And actually, I just read, let me just look here, a few minutes ago, there was a court decision out of, give me a moment. Virginia regarding the governor's order on masking, and that's being litigated as we speak. So many of the cases are functionally tied to what's going on in the particular state, but there are a couple of cases that are similar to the cases in North Allegheny School District, which have at least temporarily ruled in favor of the parents. But once again, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where we're located, the issue is still not definitively decided. And candidly, I understand the concerns on the part of the board on this issue. And I think we're all mindful enough that this is a polarizing enough issue in our communities that regardless of the decision you make, you do face the potential that some group may elect to institute suit against the district.
Thank you, Mr. Sultanic.
Ms. Nyman.
Okay. First of all, Mrs. Torsha, do we still have like partitions around the kids in their classrooms?
Only in rooms and around children that elect to have them.
Okay, so that is something that we could put in place if necessary. Because I would like to see these kids without, I'd like to see our students without the masks on in that classroom. I mean, they need to be able to see that teacher. They need to be able to see that teacher talking to them, especially kindergarten, first grade, second grade. I mean, these are impressionable years where these children have lost 2 years now.
You do understand that teachers may elect to not to wear a mask, and children won't see teachers talking to them.
I understand that. That's their option. But also maybe we can get a mask for the teachers or a shield so that the kids can see them. Because those younger kids need to see that. There is so much our students are missing. So much.
I'm not arguing that. I cannot speak or impose upon the teachers to choose a shield versus a mask, especially if they feel more vulnerable with students in the classroom that are choosing not to have masks on. So as much as you would like to see or have, teachers be seen, that will be an individual preference.
And I understand that, but our children have missed 2 years of not having a great education. I'm not saying they're not getting an education. They're getting an education, but they're not getting the education they deserve. So that's one thing. These other schools that the one parent brought up, I think it was Upper Perk and Ole, and I forget the other schools that have gone mask optional. Why aren't their numbers rising then?
I really can't answer that question, Ms. Nyman. I'm not responsible for those school districts. I can only say to the schools that I'm aware of that school boards have made the determination to go mask optional. It's not been the recommendation of an administration. And much like what you were presenting this evening, both you and your colleagues, with regard to contact tracing. So if you remove contact tracing, I'm not recommending it. It's not something that the PA HON is recommending or any Department of Health recommending. But if you remove that and you're just reporting your positive cases and you're not contact tracing, you're not going to see numbers go up. There's not going to be a dashboard anymore. So people are going to be receiving.
I mean, what are
It's so
these other
disrespectful.
schools doing that?
I don't interrupt a single one of you ever when you speak. No, excuse me. It's very disrespectful. I'm sorry, Ms. Nyman, what is your question?
How can Ole, who's right next to us, or Upper Perk, who's right next to us, not have contact tracing? I don't know if they do or not. I
Ole
don't
does
know.
have contact tracing. I know nothing about Upper Perk. And Ole does contact trace. Students are quarantined. Students are removed from school. They're following that process. Daniel Boone Area School District, the school board elected not to follow the PA HON. They're contact tracing. They're putting out a blanket notification, but quarantine is up to the parent. I don't believe that that is a healthy way to move forward at this time with 1,396, cases per 100,000.
But that's also students that are not in our district. I think if we go and we check the numbers for the zip codes that are in Berks County School that go to Boyertown, I think those numbers are going to change.
And if they fall in high, what would be your recommendation?
I don't know. I'd like to see the numbers first.
What's your recommendation, Chris?
I don't know. And I don't yell out at you, so please don't yell out at me.
Ms. Diamond, can I ask you a question?
I'm talking right now.
So that would be a no. I can't ask you a question. I'm having a conversation. I thought
Can
we're
you
supposed to
wait
have a
till I'm done
conversation.
with my talking?
Oh, it happened to go with the topic that you're on.
I mean, there's got to be something that we're doing that is totally so far to the one side compared to the other side so, okay, people are going to file a lawsuit. So I guess I can file a lawsuit too because of the mask, it's affecting my health.
I'm not recommending that people are filing lawsuits, so that wasn't a conversation or any of the recommendations that the administration is bringing forth. What we're trying to recommend is a way to continue to keep kids in school, which we've done pretty successfully throughout this past year and the year prior. So we're just trying to continue to keep kids in school. I'm not saying that these work 100%. I don't know if they work. I do believe, and we believe as an administration, that transmission is being reduced and limited within our schools because of mask wearing. So at this point, I am only a educator. I'm not a health official. I require and rely on people who have studied in those areas to guide me. That's why I continue to say that we look at the CDC, the Department of Health, the Montgomery Department of Health. We look at, doctors of pediatrics who are also making recommendations, through our IU to our school districts. So that's all I have to fall on. I'm only making a recommendation based upon my administration and the work that they do every day, the health rooms, the way that they're filling up. Nurses don't get to take care of everyday needs. Right now, COVID is, really running amok. And we're continuing to try to, educate through this all and keep kids in school. And for the most part, I would have to say that we really have done a great job. Sports have not been shut down. Our extracurriculars have been, staying, moving forward. I can't tell you what's going to happen as a result of mask optional. So we'll have to wait and see it. And if you direct me to not contact trace, we do have to report positive cases per Department of Health. This is a communicable disease. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sultanic, it does fall under school code. So we are responsible for the contact trace, at least to notify parents that you have been exposed. And that's going to take a lot of work because without the mask, the K-12 masking rule goes away, and pretty much if you're in a room and there's positive cases, you're a close contact. So I'm just, all I can continue to say is that we look to the experts for them to guide us, and that's what we continue to do.
And I can tell you, where I work, we wear masks. I have people that have gotten the shot, they've gotten the booster, they've gotten the booster, they've gotten the booster. And yet these are the ones that are coming back with COVID. And I don't want to see anybody get sick. That's not my idea. I don't want to see anybody get sick because it's no fun. Whether it be the flu, a virus, whatever. Nobody. But I also do not want to keep going through this. I'm to the point I've had enough. This is ridiculous. It does nothing.
Ms. Diamond, I would much rather be sitting here and discussing with the school board anything other than COVID and mask wearing. I would love to get back to, education. But in order for the administration and I to make a recommendation as we need to, our recommendation is what we presented last week. And quite honestly, I'm not going to be insubordinate. And if there are 5 of you that determine that we need to change and you're going to give me the guidance on how it needs to change, then that's what we're going to have to do at the end of the day.
I mean, we've done the masking for almost 2 years now. And where has it gotten us? Nowhere. We still have kids out. We still shut down classrooms. We still shut down the high school. We're not getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere. And we have parents who are frustrated. We have children who are frustrated. And I'd much rather be doing education than doing this. But I think it's time to go optional. And hopefully somebody will second my opinion and we'll take a vote on that, optional.
Well, you had mentioned, and I agree with you about the numbers, that we're taking Berks County close to 1,300 out of 100,000. And I agree with you that it would be nice for us to be able to isolate closer to our backyards. So by you saying that, I'm confused. I think I'm hearing that you want the masks off, but I'm also hearing you acknowledge that there are real numbers that need to be some sort of calibration for us to come to that conclusion of masks off. So when I asked you what was your recommendation, I'm sorry I spoke out, but my question is what number, right now is 1,300. I honestly don't think that that is a real number for our district. What number do you think you would be comfortable with that we could work towards to then relieving, making it more of a mask optional? I'm seeing this plan as one that works towards mask optional, but it also can pivot back and forth. It's either all or nothing. And I hear that's a choice we're going to have to make, all or nothing. I think by going all in is reckless. I think we need to still baby step a little bit longer to come up with a number that we're comfortable with.
How much
to
longer?
then, hopefully not much.
How many years of baby steps?
So
I'm going to ask the audience now to not interrupt the people up here and let them finish their conversation. Try to be at least somewhat respectable and civil, because I haven't seen much of it in 3 weeks.
We're not included in the conversation.
You're not part of this conversation. They're the ones that are talking. I'm going to ask you again. Stop.
I don't care what you ask, because you don't want to have a conversation with
No, I don't. I don't want to talk to you.
obviously a supporter of the superintendent.
Okay?
And he's written questions.
Ralph, I've had it.
What does that
This is
mean?
second week out of 3.
Fourth week in a row. Why don't we have a dialogue?
No, you are the problem for me.
because you have nothing to say.
So far, you're going to sue us and you're going to pull your kids. Okay, I got it. So sue us and pull your kids. But I'm done arguing with you from the audience.
I'm just going to come every week, and you're going to argue with me every week?
Well, I'll have you thrown out every week.
Well, you already had a guy with a pistol on his hand because my mask was below my nose. So
Well, then
Can we
I guess
take a
why the guy
recess?
with a pistol
I
on his
say we
hip
take a
again take
recess.
you out.
We're going to my comments online. We're going on comments online that have no names next to them, and we're going to take people that can't even cite an accurate source. You can't even cite an accurate source to what you're claiming. We're just talking about abstract. Remove me? You're going to physically remove me out of a school board meeting? You heard me. I'm not leaving. I want to get physically dragged out. 330 pounds. You want to do it? I'm not going to resist. I'm just going to sit here because this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to get dragged out. Is that what you're going to do? All right, so drag me out. I'm sitting right here. I'm not getting out. You're going to physically
Jim.
Meeting reconvened. I believe we left off with Mr. Hemingway talking to Miss Nyman.
Yeah, Ms. Nyman, if you don't mind, I just was saying, is there a number that you would be more comfortable with? That you'd be more comfortable with by then lowering the mask? Like, or am I hearing that you just, regardless of what the number is, you want the masks off?
In looking at what I'm asking Mrs. Torsia to try to find out. So just say we look at 19505, 19512. Let's just take those two zip codes. And we see that there's 100 in the one and 200. We also have to look at the population for those zip codes. And we'll have to look at that. So until we look at all that information, I can't tell you what we're looking at.
I do have that information up. It is called Mainline Mama. That's where they break down the information by zip code. And yep, it gives 19512 Boyertown has 873 cases per 100,000 in the last 7 days. Bally is at 1,048. Perkiomenville, that one would not be, 18074, is that one of ours?
That's
okay,
mine.
that's yours. 719. Pottstown is at 1,212.
I don't know that we could use that because that's part of.
I believe Pottstown, there are some that are in there, so that one may be higher. Douglasville is 915. Schwanksville is 866. Gilbertsville is 1,112. 19505 is 565. So they're all pretty well above, and they're all sitting still in high. They're are red. So those are the numbers for your community here, for our community here in Boyertown.
But I don't.
Mr. Updegrove.
Big question on that is how many of those are students?
I don't know that it matters how many are students. It could be their families. It's the community in which you're living and working and going shopping in and doing your sports. So it's this community. It's this area. Now, I'm not going to profess to be an expert on disseminating this information. I'm just giving you what is sitting here in front of me. Okay.
Could you send that to me or the link or whatever?
So again, Ms. Nyman, just in conversation, is there a number that you would feel more, I know that none of us are experts, but just your gut feeling or what you would want to see, is there a number that you would be more comfortable with? I mean, obviously right now, we could say it isn't 1,300. We can just say an average of that is 600. So we're at 600. Do you think that it's unacceptable that we remain masked at 600? What number would you be more comfortable with to lessen the restrictive mask?
I honestly don't know, but I know we've been masked for all but 2 years now, and we're not any better than we were before.
Okay, in all respect, you say, I don't know. Well, you have to. You have to find a number that you're comfortable with, or the only other answer that you would be able to give is free-for-all. No mask, doesn't, regardless of what the numbers are. I'm just asking you, is there a way that we can come up with something that you would be more comfortable with, but also acknowledge that we do have high numbers in our buildings, high numbers in our community. Where would you be comfortable pushing that envelope? I think, honestly, I think just by opening the floodgates is the wrong answer. I think with this plan, and I agree with you, there could be some revisions, it could be lightened up. Again, with that number, we need to discuss what number we would all be comfortable with to push that envelope. And I don't know isn't an answer. We need to figure out what is our comfort level. We also have to see what are the ramifications if we do open the floodgates. What's our conversation going to be in the weeks to come if those floodgates are open? And Ms. Dorsey, I would ask you, would it be probably fair to say we're going to have conversations in regards to our extracurriculars? Are we going to have conversations in regards to our sports? Are we going to have conversations in regard to the set they're going to start building on this stage in a few weeks? Yeah, next week even. Are these things that we wouldn't be having these conversations if we followed this plan?
I would say, Mr. Hemingway, that if, masks stay in place and the K-12, mask rule stays in place, whereas if you're next to each other and you're both masked, I'm positive, you stay, you don't have to be removed. The only time that anything would change would be when we're at lunch. So an answer, yes, for the most part, I think things would stay status quo. Obviously, there are circumstances that would, change that. And again, it's what has been working. And with regard to making the closures, we do it because, especially with the classrooms are close. There's 25 students in the classrooms. With the teacher, there's not 6 feet in between. We don't want to see transmission within the classrooms. So we have moved to those classrooms to close when we meet that 5% of the population based upon the Department of Health guidelines. We're not making any of this information up. I think that I've showed that to you, where we're gaining the guidance. Again, it's the best that we have right now. Did I answer your question, Mr. Hemingway?
Yes, ma'am. I do have another one, if I may, real quick. In these guidelines, what flexibility do we have to, I want to say the word modify, but go against the best practices or the recommendations of the Department of Health, the CDC, and all of them? I mean, what are our limitations? I mean, is it we either follow them or we don't, or are we allowed to work with what we feel would work best for Boyertown? Now, I know your recommendation is what you feel works best. Is there any latitude for us to make some revisions in this plan to remain masked, but yet, to use contact tracing for an example, is that an area that could not be as strict? Are there areas in this plan that could have some latitude?
The administration would take any of the recommendations that, the board wishes to make with regards to the plan. Obviously, regardless what, we're all working with every single day and the direction that the board wants to go, we're going to take that into consideration or be directed and do what we need to do per your vote, I guess we could just say. And at this point, the guidance is the guidance, and the board can really choose to say, we're going to have you follow it, or we're going to have you do what we think might be best for Boyertown right now.
I do have one question. Masks have been an integral part of your mitigation strategies as cases rise. So at least that's what I've seen when we've discussed it. So taking masks away, what would that leave you as a mitigation strategy should cases start to climb in any school, any building, any classroom? What would be your actions to that, since masking would no longer be a shield?
If masks were optional?
If masks were optional.
And your numbers rose.
If masks were optional and numbers rose, we would assume and move to closure. But if the board tells me what the plan should be and we're not contact tracing and we're not removing, then we stay in school.
Yes, Mr. Penrose.
Regardless of whether they're wearing masks or contact tracing, that the school closures go by the 5% of actual people that have been confirmed to have it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So as we discussed, we would not move BASH to any kind of virtual instruction unless we hit the 5% of that total population of that school.
How close are we right now? Like pretty close,
At
right?
BASH specifically, or?
Yeah, at the high school.
I have that somewhere. Right now, we have, and I'm not sure, so, because I have two different documents. We are about at 60 students at the high school, and then we have 8
Mrs. Torsia.
confirmed staff cases.
Mrs.
Yes.
Torsia, if I may, just to let you know, because of the phone situation we had today, we were made aware after the final updates today that there are 20 additional pending cases at the high school
Okay.
that have not been reported as of yet.
We're getting close. Yeah. Yeah, right. We determined 5%. There's 2,200 students up there with staff, so it was about 120.
So what actually happens at 120?
At 120,
If we change the plan.
if we change the plan to optional, it would depend on the other recommendations. So if it's optional and or contact tracing and we're reporting, then that school would move to virtual, at least for 5 days, and then we would come back. Because the CDC and DOH guidance has changed on quarantine, we wouldn't shut down for the 14 days, we would go with the 5 and have everybody return back with masks on for day 6 to 10.
So,
Well, if we're mask optional, it's going to be very difficult to have anybody return with masks.
Except for that for the following CDC guidelines.
Correct.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So that would still, so they would at least have to come back and then do 5 days.
Correct.
All right, that's all.
Yep. But they would be virtual synchronous with their teacher as long as their teacher was not sick and was able to be in the classroom. Yeah.
as far as staff right now, how tight are we on staff?
I know Mrs. Frederickson was not here this evening. We had about a 60% fill rate, which is thankful to Kelly Services working with us. I don't know what the exact amount of numbers that were out, but it's high. We've been running around 45 staff members out a day. It's been challenging.
Okay, yes, Mrs. Scott.
Sorry, are they all teachers that are out, or is it just a month?
When I say 45, that's teachers. That does not include the paraprofessionals. And I don't have the number of, well, Mr. Stout usually gets a report on the number of bus drivers that are out. But that would be the staff, that 45 average.
But you are able to get substitutes in the classrooms?
We are not able to cover every single classroom. So what's happening at the high school is that when staff is out and there's no coverage and people have been taken from their planning periods to cover and we've exhausted all of that, then students are placed in a large room like this with one person, and that can happen to a student multiple times throughout a day.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Torsh, I should note the busing situation is pretty significant because we actually had to cancel a run today due to the shortage, and kids were not able to be transported to school because of what had taken place. And on a daily basis, runs are consolidated, and we've had to dismiss students from the high school at 2 o'clock so bus drivers can get a run done before they go and do their other run at least 6 times this year.
Okay, I'm gonna, this is getting very long. I'm gonna go with one more question per each person if they would like it. But then at that point, I want to move forward. Mrs. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, if we were to go mask optional, what and forgive me, I can't think of a better word, what burden would that place on our healthcare, like our health care professionals working in the district?
It would not just impact the nurses in the health room, it would impact the principals, our nurse supervisor, our communications person. Everybody would be hands on deck doing the contact tracing. Now, if we're directed to not contact trace and only report our numbers and report our close contacts, then it would change the work that people would be doing. But people would not be, people that want to be told that their child is a close contact would really have to get a generic type of letter. And then they would be making decisions on their own.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mrs. Scott.
Mrs. Torsha, when the students, when you do the contact tracing and you say, you decide that there's 2 that contact and you send them home, are they sick, visibly sick, or do you just do that as a precaution?
They meet the criteria to be a close contact. So especially at lunchtime where both individuals would be unmasked for a longer period than 15 minutes and within 6 feet, 3 feet actually, they're usually shoulder to shoulder because we can't get that much separation during lunch. They are sent home to be watched for symptoms. However, as we are looking at this plan, something that is definitely in the works is, the ability to test to stay, being at home on quarantine for 5 days, you're not becoming symptomatic, you return on the 6th day with your mask on. So there have been changes per CDC that we are incorporating as part of this plan.
Okay, thank you.
Would that still be part of it if you were a close contact and went home and quarantined for 5 days, you would, even though we're mask optional, you would have to come back with a mask on, is that correct?
That is correct. Some school districts that have gone mask optional have chosen to not allow students to come back until day 10 because of the inability to, reinforce those kids wearing masks, especially when you're talking about a high school with 2,200 students. So
Would the board need to direct you to the 5 or 10 day quarantine period?
right now, it's part of the plan.
I mean, if we go optional,
Yes.
would you also?
I would need a lot of direction because I
Yeah.
have a plan together, or the administration has presented a plan much differently than anything that's being discussed here.
What I'm hearing is, and you can correct me, if we're going to go mask optional, we are also going to have to seriously consider to stop contact tracing and maybe consider a 10-day quarantine period instead of 5. Does that sum it up?
That would be options.
Ms. Nyman?
Okay, I can understand contact tracing at lunches. You're shoulder to shoulder. You're not like sitting in your seat in the classroom, facing the front of the room or however. I can understand that part of it because you are that close. I would not have a problem in the lunchroom for contact tracing. But in a classroom where you're sitting there, you're getting your education, you're facing up front to the teacher, you're not shoulder to shoulder, I don't see a need in a classroom.
You're assuming that students aren't shoulder to shoulder, and there are situations where they are shoulder to shoulder when they're doing small group instruction. They do work in groups. There could be times when they are in the gym and they're working, closer. Not every classroom can, provide for 6 feet. 3 feet is really where we're getting. Within our specialized classrooms, those students are typically much closer to one another. So there's a lot of occasions where students are for 15 minutes or longer, much closer than what you suspect. In typical high school classroom, maybe a little bit more separation unless you're working on a lab or you're working with a partner. So we're not trying to discourage the everyday types of things that we use to in education. masks help us to continue to do those and, you know, keep things as typical as possible.
I just have concerns over that. I mean, where do we draw the line? I mean, masks are impeding people. What happens if a child has asthma like I do, but they're not allowed to go without a mask? Or they're not allowed to have that extra break or whatever? I mean,
Asking me a question, Ms. Nyman, because we are providing mask breaks, and certainly students have that as an accommodation. I'm not sure what else.
I've heard from parents that have provided doctor's excuses, doctor notes, and they're not being allowed to go with a shield or whatever. And that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. And we've left it go for 2 years now, where some people who need to be without a mask or have a shield on, and they're not being allowed to.
I do need to ask one clarification question. I don't believe you could have different rules for different rooms in the school. So if you're going to contact trace or not contact trace, it'd have to be entire school. You couldn't not contact trace in classrooms and contact trace for cafeteria. I don't think that would be allowable, but I'll ask the question.
I'm not certain that it's not allowable. It would be consistency and being transparent to all parents.
How could you possibly enforce that? I'm kind of at a loss. But that's just my question, just for clarification for me. Mr. Updegrove?
Yeah, my one question is, I keep hearing from board members that the mask off. It's going to be mask optional. So that's up to the student and the parent to drum it into their head. You wear your mask in the school, on the bus, all the time. That's their prerogative. Am I assuming that right if we go that way?
You're assuming that parents will send their children who want their children to be masked, they'll be masked, but that still negates the mask, the K-12 mask rule. So even if you are masked in a room or in whatever environment within a school with unmasked people, you become a close contact if you're within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more, regardless of you having your mask on. And unless you're vaccinated, boosted, or have had COVID within the last 90 days, then you wouldn't, be expected to quarantine.
Okay, I believe we've had enough questions at this point, or let Mr. Zawala one more.
This is just but the new SOP or whatever for where the government recommended or CDC recommended now to 5 days instead of the 10. If they're asymptomatic, they have to quarantine for the 5 days and then 5 days of mask, but with no symptoms, they can come back to school the next day, correct?
They can come back to school on the 6th day with a mask, 6 through 10.
If they have no symptoms.
Correct.
Well, that's the same thing as a person with symptoms.
If they're not vaccinated or have not had COVID within the past 90 days.
The way it was stated, or I've been watching with CDC, is basically if you've been around it, okay, and you don't have, if you're at work and you've been around, somebody gets it, if you don't have, and I guess schools are different, but if you're not sick, you can go back the next day. So I guess the schools are different. That's what I'm getting confused between, and we can talk about that, in our discussions if it is different, Ms. Dorsey. So thank you.
I believe that's test to return. Is that not correct?
That's one of them.
try to be at a test.
To point out is one thing very obvious to me is that we're having some problems trying to discern what the rules would be as we're sitting around here. Just think of how it's going to be in the building trying to enforce them. I just want to bring that up. So there'll be a lot of clarity that to give to the administration in order to move forward if you want to go to mask optional. So you need to keep that in mind as you're asking the administration to move forward with that, if that's the outcome of the meeting. Okay, Mr. Hemming, I'm going to make yours the last question.
All right, yeah, just real quick, because we're kind of starting to now talk in circles. I just know by my experience of what we've gone through here in the last 2 years, and we'll even just say this last year, working under the current plan that we have, I'm hearing a lot of generalizations that keep coming forth. You know, I heard from a teacher, or I heard from a parent, or I heard this, I heard. Ms. Torcher, is there any documented cases of any of this, what I heard, on file in our district?
Nothing that's been brought to my attention, Mr. Hemingway.
Okay, so nothing brought to your attention, which means nothing has been officially brought to our attention. Not to say that we could generalize and say, hey, the kids are, I have my own child. I can tell you there's a difference in her, but I can't contribute that whole thing to a mask specific. This whole thing stinks. All of it. I don't think anybody can deny that. All I do know is that under the current plan, and I said this before, and I think you all realize, and I hope you realize, I don't believe in these things, but I do believe they're a golden ticket to keep my kid in school. It's to keep your kid in school. It's to keep our programs. It's to keep consistency. We just said we don't have any documented cases brought to us that the masks are causing detrimental harm to the kids. We have studies that are saying that it's far more beneficial for them to be in school, face-to-face, in class, participating with their friends, participating in the activities. How are we doing that? We've been doing it pretty successfully, and that's through a plan that this administration put forth. I support the plan that they are modifying, if you will, or updating. And I think through that plan, we're going to have the consistency to continue what we have all witnessed. We've all, hopefully, you've gotten out to see some of the performances. Hopefully, some of your own children made the honor rolls or made new friends or being successful in their school career. I want to see that continue. And this is a plan that will help allow that to happen. It's also a plan that I hope you all realize does work towards unmasking. How long that takes? Yeah, we've been in this for 2 years. It started, it was supposed to be, what, a 2-week curve? I mean, we all know that that's a load of crap. We need to continue to be patient. We're at the end. Don't drive the car out of the paint booth until the paint's dry. Let it dry a little longer. Let's see what we can do. Let's continue with the continuity and the consistency that is proven to have worked. So I support the plan as it's stated from administration tonight. So thank you all.
Okay, with that, I think the next thing is a motion.
To accept the health and safety plan as presented, the 21-22 health and safety plan as presented.
Okay, that's the motion. Do we have a first?
Hogan motions.
Second? Okay, let's move forward to a roll call. We're voting on acceptance of the plan that's been presented tonight. Yeah. Yes to the plan, no, not, yes or no?
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Ms. Nyman,
No.
Mr. Panarello,
No.
Mr. Updegrove,
No.
Mr. Zawada,
No.
Mrs. Scott,
No.
Ms. Deeroff,
Yes.
Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Brophy.
Yes.
4 yes, 5 nay. Motion fails.
Okay, at this point, We now will continue under the present health and safety plan. I would expect that the members of the board who turned down this plan will now give some direction to the administration on what they'd like to see in a plan that they'll vote for.
That's not to be discussed now, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have to come out here. The administration needs direction. So they can't, for one thing, if we're going to move forward in a regular process, the administration has to amend the plan quickly, as soon as possible, get it up on the website for public comment, so we can bring it back next week and do a final vote on that plan. So that's how the process should take it. If anybody thinks that's not the proper process, they can speak up. Yes, Ms. Hogan.
I just have a question, not about the well, I guess it is about the process, but my question is, when does the plan need to be submitted by? I know it doesn't have like okay, I appreciate it.
No, but the community needs a plan that's approved and moving forward as soon as possible. So
right.
I would think we would have to give the administration direction tonight
Sure. No,
to move forward so they can get it up as soon as possible and get the public comments, same as pretty much last meeting, and close the books by Sunday. Be able to revise the plan, bring it back Tuesday for a final vote and implementation of the new plan.
Will the community have a chance to respond to this new presented plan as we did? We presented this last week. The community had a chance to send in email responses. Will they have that opportunity again, or once this new plan's presented, it's all in and done without any community input on this new plan presented?
They would have their time to put in for it this next week until Sunday. At that point, the plan's put forward, and then we would go forward with that. Is that correct, Mrs. Torsha?
But Jim, that plan's not created yet. We have to have it presented at the next meeting. Will the community have in other words, will we be making a vote at the next meeting for this plan once it's presented, or will the community have the opportunity, as we did this presentation, to have that, I guess it was a week, to respond back through that website after they get an opportunity to review the plan? Or is our next meeting it's once and done, present it, and we either take it or don't without community input?
I believe that would be for Mrs. Torsha and what she feels we have to do. So I believe you would have to answer that question.
And what I would say is that the plan would be presented per the direction given to me tonight at the next board meeting, which would be on the 25th. It should sit for the amount of time that it's sat now, and you could create an additional voting meeting for February 1st, because we don't have another meeting again until February 8th. If you are going to consider public comment for the plan that you're directing me to create.
Is a week enough time for you to modify that? Not trying to stall or get accused of anything. Just in all honesty, you are running a district while we're trying to do this too. Is a week enough time?
Not sure what the direction is yet, Mr. Hemingway.
Okay.
Okay, the floor is now open for direction from the board members of what they would like to see in the plan. Mr. Zwala, what do you have?
I would like to see if there's some way to raise the number on the per 100,000. The question is basically, is the per 100,000 a mandate from the CDC, or is that how did that, like we were using roughly 5% when we were looking for school closing. Is that number can that be changed by a school district? I guess that's what I'm saying.
You're referencing the number of the incidents? Well, that's up to you. The Department of Health is recommending 5% of the student population. If the board is directing, the majority of the board is directing me to use a different arbitrary number,
So
then
we can change
please
that.
provide that number to me, because I'm
Okay.
not going to take a stab at it.
No, I'm looking at 12%.
Okay, Mrs. Torsi, you ready to take down the different issues? So, who wants, I guess, Mr. Zawala, you want to start with what you'd like to see in the plan?
Yeah, I'd like to see or change the per 100,000 number to 12%, please.
No, you're confusing.
I'm not understanding the
Oh.
per 100,000. The per 100,000 is what is given by the Department of Health, CDC blanketly, and it's telling you the incidence rate per 100,000. So I can't change that number. That's the incidence of positive cases in the Berks County area. So if 1,394 per 100,000 are showing that they're positive for COVID, that's data that's being collected by the Department of Health, and specifically Berks County, and says that we're in high transmission. So I'm not going to be able to change that type of
Okay, but
data.
that's for Berks County. What number, like, when we shut the high school,
So when we're moving to go to virtual, we're not shutting down. We're still teaching students, and they're all working synchronously. We're using a number of students that have positive cases. So right now, it's 5% of that total. The way that the Department of Health has it outlined is it's 5% of a total population within a building. That's students and staff. So Bash is the highest that it can be, so you would take that total number times the 5%, we got 120, and that was the number that we were using to say, maybe there's something going on here and we should move to virtual, give things a rest. So if the Department of Health said 5%, if you're saying you'd like to see that threshold higher before we go to move kids to virtual, then
that's what I was leaning towards.
Okay.
Thank you. So,
Hey, Jeff, to clarify, the two are two different numbers. The incident rate that we had per 100,000, they were using that, what was it, get down to 100 was the criteria to remove the mask. That's what that number was used for. That wasn't necessarily, that's not what was used to determine whether you close the building down.
Right.
That was the number that I think you're asking.
I'm still concerned about if we go to some ridiculous number that we would go to virtual, okay, until we can bring it back down.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little confused.
Can I try here for a second? I think if that incidence number, if we go mask optional, that incidence number becomes actually irrelevant, because we're not following that at all anymore. The only thing you would be following is when you're going to go virtual, when you're shutting down the school. Yeah, that's what I'm getting. When to go to 12%, which would be about, 260 kids or something.
Yeah, I don't want to see everybody in the school get sick, okay? And I think we need, in a way, to figure, for the last 2 years, we've been in an experiment. Now we're kind of going into another experiment. So I would like to, before we go, the max would be 12% for shutting the school down, for any school, virtual.
But what about classrooms in elementary school where you have positive cases within a classroom? Are you looking to apply that same number to?
Yes. We use 5% for the classrooms now, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I'd raise that to 12.
Mr. Parnell?
Some of the changes I'd like to see made is to go optional on the mask. I think you have to give me the numbers for sure, but Ms. Torsia, were we at like over 100 last week? Or at least someone had rumored we were over 100?
Last week?
Yeah,
Of positive cases?
yes. I think it's inevitable. I think it's so contagious right now, the likelihood of the school closing down is highly likely, regardless of whether we're wearing masks or not. And I think the CDC had said the mask, like I'm wearing right now, this is the mask I have, this is useless. The CDC said this is useless. They said I should be wearing N95 fitted mask. I don't have this. So if we're going to continue to say you have to wear a mask, what is the point of wearing a mask that we know for a fact is not working? So unless you're going to make people wear the mask they're recommending, it's pointless to wear this mask.
Yeah, but right now, what we're looking is what you would want changed in the.
Yeah,
You
the
want,
mask.
you want to go
I
mask.
want to go
we're
mask
gonna
optional.
go
Yes.
for mask optional.
Mask optional. I
Like,
think you're going to have to get rid of the contact tracing.
so you want contact tracing to also be eliminated?
Removed, yes.
Okay, that's what we're looking at. Thank you. Mrs. Nyman.
I don't know that I'm comfortable with 12%. I think that's a little bit high, kind of. And right now, the CDC is recommending 5 days, correct? Is that if you're test positive, 5 days if you're vaccinated? What about unvaccinated?
If you test positive, regardless of being vaccinated or unvaccinated, you should be out for 5 days. And if you are asymptomatic, and I don't have my nurse here, you should be able to return masked for days 6 through 10. If you're a close contact, you should quarantine. We were talking about testing, being able to have a test to be able to come back in. But if you're a close contact and you have no symptoms, you should be able to return on days 6 through 10, again, wearing a mask to shorten the, my nurse is here, to be able to shorten the amount of time out. Is that correct, Mrs. Van Vacchius? Thank you.
Can you come back to me? I need to look some stuff up.
Mr. Upgrove?
I'll wait till I hear some more.
Mrs. Scott? Turn your mic on, please.
I'll get used to it. I do agree with upping the number. I like the 12% number. That seems pretty good. I do have a question. If it would reach that number, and I pray it doesn't, that we have to go out for, it's 5 days virtual out. Everyone goes home in that building, in the middle school and high school. It's just a building by building.
Well, the plan that the administration presented was that we would have looked at the number of positivity within a grade level at the middle school and high school before having to move an entire building virtual, if the numbers were there. But if you get right to 12% of the student population being positive, then the whole group goes.
And that's 5 days.
That would be for 5 days.
Okay, do you count the weekend? Like, let's say you started on a Wednesday, students have been out, it's Monday now. They come back masked for 5 days, but they come back.
That would be correct. We do count the weekend. It's 5 days that you are out of that building. On the day 6, you are to return, and that building should return masked for days 6 through 10.
Okay. Okay, well then I do agree with the 12%. And then go, and hopefully we will not have to leave the building.
Mr. Brophy had to step out for a second, so he asked if I would call on Lisa.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Hemingway. Is it okay to ask questions, or I'm fine with waiting until Mr. Updegrove and Ms. Nyman have finished. Okay, I'll wait. Thank you.
Mr. Updegrove? I think they are done.
I'm okay with a 12%. And that's K through 12 then, right? Is that all buildings?
If that's the direction that the board is giving me, yes, it would be all buildings.
Ed Center, the Ed Center?
Well, we'd be wiped out.
Okay.
So we would have to close the district down, because if I can't come to work and the rest of
Okay.
the people in there, then forget it, we're done. And
Okay.
it'll be at least for 14 days, Mr. Updegrove.
Okay. I understand. That's why I asked.
I'm kidding.
Okay, Mr. Nyman?
Okay, rather than the 12%, I would say 10%. With the option, maybe, because right now it's a highly contagious, whatever it's called. Thank you. And that seems to be a little bit more contagious than everything else has been, although I'm concerned on all of them. But maybe if we would keep a classroom, like the elementary, we don't close the school down until we hit, okay, then maybe I would do 12%, but maybe a classroom of 5%. And that way we could shut down a class before it became an issue for the whole building.
Are you asking me? Or maybe the other?
I'm just kind of running that out there. Like a classroom.
I think they already do that, the number they're using is 5, and that's for everything. That's whether it's the school, the classroom. If a classroom gets 5%, the classroom's out. That doesn't mean that the school hit the 5%. That just means that classroom hit 5%. So am I correct, Ms. Dorset?
Under the current plan,
Yeah,
yes,
under the
but
current plan.
what the direction that I'm receiving, I'm hearing that you want 12%.
Well, now the number that they've come up with is 12%.
And
But
that would
it
be
would
for a
still be
classroom
applied
as
for a
well.
classroom. So it would be the same thing. If 12% is the number that everybody wants.
Mrs. Torsha?
I think that is a little high.
If I could just speak for 1 second. In the elementary room, it's 5 students or teacher that make up 5 in a classroom. It's 5% at the high school and the middle school. I just want to, because I'm hearing 2 different things.
So we have to put it per head for the elementary schools. We'll have to go to a per head for the elementary schools.
If you want me to use 12% within a classroom, within an elementary classroom, then that's what we would use to determine that that class would have to go virtual, whichever happens first. If a classroom has 12% positive cases or a building has 12% positive cases, somebody might get there sooner. I mean, you could have 23 kids out in a classroom and it just impacting that one classroom, and that's the class that has to go virtual.
I would think hopefully you'd want to get, you'd hit it, the 12% of the classroom go virtual in the classroom, and hope to stop the spread at that point, but there'd be no guarantee that you wouldn't continue to just domino right through the entire school. So
If we could, you've done a great job, Ms. Torsi, as far as controlling and going by per class. So I guess the formula maybe would be to go to the 12, because we're using the 5% roughly, except for the elementary school, I guess. You're using
5% across the board.
Okay,
In every scenario based upon the plan that was presented.
Okay, so if we change it to 12 or 10, if that's what the majority, we can do a quick hands to see if we want 12 or 10 and go from there.
Jeff, can I just ask you how you came up with that percentage, based on what?
Well, I came up with the percentage that in case we got to a severe case load, okay, and then bring it, because I think the 5% number is too low to shut a school down.
Okay, well, that's going by recommendations from those who do know. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, did you just, look up and say 12%? What are you basing that on? Who are you to decide what
I
is?
was basing on basically a number of trying to get to around 250 for the high school.
Okay, based on what?
Of the 100,000. That's where the 100,000 got missed.
Okay, I'm trying to understand.
Right, and that's where
your thought process. I just don't want it to be a number that was pulled out of the air. If you can explain it to me, I'll probably agree.
I feel 120 is too low. So I went to the 12 because it's close. It got, I was at 10. I said I'll go for 12 because I wanted to basically double the number of the 125.
Mrs. Torsha, if I may talk a little bit about the elementary classroom and using the percentages. One of the discussions that the district had in putting together the plan is that when you use percentages at the elementary schools as your counter for shutting down a classroom, we have classrooms that are ranging in size from 15 kiddos to potentially 29 or 30 kiddos. And if you say 12%, you've actually just dropped our number. You've actually made it lower depending on class size than 5. So just keep in mind that if you go to percentages across the board, class sizes at the elementary school vary significantly, and the number actually becomes lower than a set head count.
So we could keep the elementary at the same numbers that we're using now.
The way that we have it outlined in the health and safety plan?
That number's what, 2, 3? Number of kids is, when you go to the number, I think it's less than that.
What the recommendation is at the elementary level, rather than going with a percentage, it's easier to say if 12 of 25 students are positive, then you may want to move that class to virtual. So that is how we've been managing the classroom so that we could make sure that we were maintaining, as little transmission as possible as the numbers were, escalating. And in one classroom, we did have definitely saw the numbers going up. So percentages may or may not work, but like I shared, you give me the direction and, yeah.
Yes, Lisa. Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Berkey. So I apologize. I'm confused about where the 12% came from. You're basing that off of the 100,000? Is that what you said?
I'm basing it off of, right now we're using the number of 120 in the high school to go virtual.
Yeah.
Okay.
5%. So I was looking at a higher number, either to double it or go a little higher. That's where the 12% came from. It could be 10 and that would get us to 250. I think the numbers should be around 250. But we have to get a number, we have to use a percentage so it can cover all the other schools.
Okay. And
I think what he's basing it on, from what I hear, is the high school number. It's based on the biggest building we have.
The high school closure number.
Yeah, for the closing, for the biggest one. And that may not be the same thing you want to use for the elementary schools, is what I'm also hearing. So we would need to give more direction on that.
And I just wanted to ask Mrs. Torsha for clarity. Where does the 5% number come from?
The 5% is a percentage that is given to us through the Department of Health through one of the documents that we use as guidance. And it's based upon the total class size or total building size. So it could be for a small building, a medium building, a large building. So it's telling you to utilize that percentage when you're determining to, based upon positive cases, to move to virtual instruction. They believe that if we got to this number, then we should probably clear out a building and let things rest, reset your enrolling numbers, and start over.
So just to be clear, the 5% number comes from the PA DOH.
Correct, yes.
Who is staffed by public health officials and other people who are qualified to come up with that number, and the 12% comes from what we, who have no training, would just like to see. That, to me, is concerning.
I hate to stop conversation here, but what I really need you guys to do is tell the administration what you'd like to see in the new plan. Right now, we're debating issues, and that's not what we want to be doing right now. There'll be time for that later. But right now, the administration needs direction on what the majority board wants in the plan, so they can put it together and get it back and present it to us. I don't think debating right now is the proper thing to be doing. Thanks.
May I make a recommendation? And if you would take the plan that has been presented and go through it, because each of the pieces of the plan are what we are supposed to incorporate. So as you go through the plan, under the first part, which is A, universal and correct wearing of masks, perhaps you can direct me and maybe it can come in an email to me, to everybody, and we go from there. That may be the easier way, and we can review it next week during our voting meeting.
Honestly, I thought that's what we were going to do and not discuss it, to work on some numbers that sort of make sense. I didn't, like, how did I pull the 12%? It was a number that we could work with now. How do we do the elementary school now, Ms. Torres?
We are looking at the number of positive cases within a classroom. So an average class size is 25. We typically are looking that if we have 4 positive cases plus a teacher, we then make the recommendation to move that class, because there are other students that are out as close contacts that are waiting, for testing. So in order to, and really we're not moving to the virtual platform so much because of the whole spread, but if I have half of the class out that is not in the classroom, it's in their best interest for the whole class to go virtual so that there can be synchronous instruction and to give that classroom a opportunity to reset as well.
Is there a different number you use when it's 15 children in the class?
We certainly would. If it would be a self-contained special education classroom where we have more vulnerable students, we're going to look at those students, their ability to be able to wear a mask, to be able to, stay up on top of hand washing and all the other layered mitigation efforts that we put into place to keep kids safe. That number could be lower.
Mrs. Scott?
Mrs. Torsha, the middle school, do they switch between periods, or are they in one, they're not in one classroom, correct?
No, they switch periods.
Mr. Updegrove?
Would it be possible then to leave the elementary alone and just do the middle school and the high school at the 12% optional?
Use the current procedure that they're using now for the elementary school?
Yeah, I guess if that's what you direct.
I agree with Mr. Updegrove on that.
Sogan?
Just to clarify, the elementary also switch classes as well. They move about the buildings all day long as well.
They move as a group. Typically, the teacher is moving more so than the students, unless, of course, you're a student with special needs that may be, going and having mixed cohorts. If it's a multi-level, grade level classroom.
So, I know from when I was volunteering in the schools pre-COVID, children were moving about. So now we're moving teachers and trying to keep kids in classrooms?
We are trying to keep the kids, in the rooms and moving the teachers, which helps with the mitigation efforts.
Right.
I can't say that that's happening in every scenario.
Sure. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other recommendations for, Mr. Hemmingway?
Not a recommendation, a quick question for Roger. Roger, we're still masked on the buses? Are we still
Yeah, it's a
under-
federal law, it's
still
not
federal
gonna
law,
change.
mask mandates? Okay.
So do we have any other recommendations, Mrs. Torsia? I mean, we've gone on pretty far on this for a little bit, probably a little longer than I thought we would, but it's been good conversation, so Mrs. Nyman?
Are we going to look at this over the next week and send Mrs. Torsia some recommendations?
That would be very helpful.
Okay.
So that I know exactly what I'm doing, because in summary, I'm hearing that a majority of the board is looking for the administration to have mass optional. I heard some people saying that they didn't wish for us to follow the PA HON, which means that when there are positive cases in a classroom, that we would not contact trace with quarantine, and we would only be, giving out generic notification to parents that your child has been exposed. So that's what I'm picked up from the earlier conversation. So I need to be clear on exactly, what you're expecting the administration to do in the event of positive cases, or not do in the event of positive cases.
Would you want to set up individual Zoom meetings with each person, each of the board majority, to talk to you about, or just send it in to you? I don't know, which would work best for you is what I'm asking.
Sending it in would probably be the easiest.
Yes, Mr. Upgrove.
What is the policy on if the student is sent home for contact tracing, but they test negative? Can they come back into the school?
They would be able to come back into the school. Again, the recommendation is stay out at least 5 days. And if you've tested negative, you should be able to come back. Now, close contact, are we letting them, Mrs. Van Vacchius, were we letting a close contact come up or come back if they were asymptomatic and tested negative? We were using PCR tests. That's kind of gone by the wayside because they're hard to get. Now the utilization is really the home test kits.
Yeah, it's been very difficult testing lately, so we have been accepting quite a few things, but as far as coming back from a close contact situation, we've been leaving them out for 5 days. As long as they're not symptomatic, they are returning on the 6th day. So we've been just kind of holding steady with that right now.
Mr. Torsia, you need anything else from us at the moment?
No.
This session, at this point, unless there's a need to continue on for someone, and move to the next portion, which would be committee comment. I'll have no comment because I've already said enough, but we can go around, and I guess we can start over this end with Ms. Nyman, just for committee comment. Please keep this portion to 3 minutes. I mean, I went for open, no time limit on the discussions, because that's what we really needed to do, but I'd like to hold this portion to 3 minutes.
I will give my 3 minutes.
Okay. Mr. Updegrove.
No comment now.
Ms. Hogan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Murphy. I'll be short since it is late. I wanted to commend the administration on the success of the health and safety plan as they have implemented it since September. It has allowed for continued in-person instruction, for small group instruction. It has, as Mrs. Torsia said, kept things as typical as possible with no interruption to extracurriculars. I think they have done an excellent job, and I wanted to thank them for their hard work. And that's all. Thank you.
Ms. Scott? Ms. Darrow?
Is this committee comments or board comments?
This will be committee comment.
No, I don't have anything, not on the committee. Thank you. Oh, the only thing I have to say, if anybody has any information they'd like to share with me or suggestions for the census, please send me an email. I hear all these people are concerned, but I don't receive anything. Thank you.
Mr. Zawala?
Ms. Torsia, I want you not to take this personally. This is something that I believe you've done a great job with what you've been handed. we're trying to figure out a different way that possibly the school district can go forward at and help some of our constituents. So please, don't take any of this personally.
Mr. Panarello.
I have no other comment.
Mr. Hemingway.
All right, I'll just be brief. I too would like to thank administration for their work. In our current plan, it's been a good plan. It was a good plan right from the beginning. It did exactly what it was set out to do. As a board member, I'm disappointed that there is a change in direction. One thing I'm disappointed in, and forgive me guys, but I was expecting a little bit more out of you in regards to the direction. It seems like we made this up on the go here. We're going over a plan that's been well thought by, as you saw, 11 administrators, health professionals, to develop a plan. And what I just witnessed was 4 of us, a board, I'll include myself, sort of winging it tonight to make this up. That's unacceptable as far as I'm concerned as a parent of this district. As a board member, I get it. We're going to listen, we're going to follow the process, we're going to see how this plays out. As a parent, I'm aggravated. I don't want to see my daughter's rest of her school career this year interrupted, and I'm fearful. I see all these signs. I saw a t-shirt that said that your fears don't do something to my rights, and I hear all this talk about fear. Not once have I ever been afraid of this virus from a health aspect, but what I am fearful of is disrupting my daughter's education. I'm hopeful that we can come up with a solution, and I'm putting my confidence in the administration just as I did so far. All right, thank you.
Once again, I'll be brief. This is the second time in my tenure here that we've had a community hopelessly split on an issue. The last time was over the virtual versus in person. 5 board members stood firm and said, virtual is no good. The kids are going back. I'll be quite honest, we got a lot of hate mail over that. I mean, I remember 150 emails in 2 days. And we also got called names. I would say some immature and juvenile members of the area nicknamed us the COVID-5, which I gave up giving people names in 8th grade. But obviously that's not a universal thing. I'm hoping, I really am, that you 5 are correct. I'm not wishing you to fail. I'm hoping you're correct. We came through with ours back then and we were correct. And the rest of the nation caught up with us about 6 months later that we were following the data and the science. I hope you guys have the same outcome because it's good for us all. I'm skeptical, I'll be quite honest. But that's why there's 9 people on the board. So hopefully we can go forward, get past this, and move on to the things we want to do, which is improve the school district. I mean, that's why I came, that's why I ran, and that's why I'm here. You know, talking about masks, talking about virtual education is not why I came on the board. But it seems like I spent 2 years doing it, and I'd really like to be talking about something else. So I do hope you're correct. So let's move forward. Let's put the petty grievances aside, and let's get this done. Next session, I think that's Mrs. Dorsha.
That would be our upcoming meetings. We have one on January 25th, February 8th, and February 22nd.
Excuse me, Mr. President, can I make a comment? I'll make it short.
Sure.
I just wanted to announce that we lost one of our very good groundskeepers, ex-groundskeepers. He retired in 2018, and that was Terry Idle. He was with the district for at least 24 years. He was a very great worker. He was very courteous, kind, and always there to help anybody that needed help. Terry left us way too soon, so I would appreciate if everybody would keep Terry's family and friends in your prayers tonight and help them get through this unexpected and very sad death. I appreciate it very much. The other thing I wanted to ask is I heard that we were getting some right-to-know requests. Is that true, Mrs. Torsia, and how many have we received?
It is true, and I believe that the count is up to 71.
Say what?
71. 71.
Ms. Torsia, is that 71 different people?
I believe it is 70 from the same individual.
Thank you.
So once again, the community's asking you to take this burden on at this time. 70 right-to-know requests from one person. It's unbelievable. Thank you.
Mr. Sultanic, are you still on?
I'm still here. I just need to hear what you just said. That's all.
Okay, we have an individual who's put in 70 right-to-know requests. At what point does that become harassment?
Unfortunately, the law has not defined that issue. I will tell you that there is a district in Montgomery County, actually it's the district where I live in, that last year spent $907,000 in legal fees responding to right-to-know requests. There have been efforts on the part of legislative lobbyists to sensitize the state legislature on the wrongful use of the Right to Know Act, where it becomes harassment. And thus far, there has not been any legislative response. And so I hear what you're saying, and I acknowledge the fact that we have gotten excessive right to know requests from an individual, but there is not much of a remedy that is currently available under state law to address that situation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tonic, real quick, is there a way that we can possibly recoup our legal fees? He's not. Mr. Tonic?
Hello?
Sorry.
I'm sure I got that right. Is there any way?
Yeah, is there any way we could recoup our legal fees from this particular one individual?
Not in this country. There's in England, yes, but not under the American rule. Under prevailing law, unless there is a legislative provision to get legal fees back, that we do not have the right to recover it.
Thank you, sir.
I don't write the laws, I report on the laws.
That was the wrong answer.
That's why we have you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Ivan? Yeah. Mrs. Nyman, the motion to adjourn. Mr. Updegrove seconds. Meeting is adjourned.